Now that we got some of the geometry definitions out of the way, let's put this all together. So we're going to combine some algebra to some geometry. So this is good practice as far as understanding how you can problem solve things. So here are some examples that you may find in your homework that we want to kind of work out here. So the question says find the measure of each marked angle. So they want us to find this 12x plus 2. So what does this 12x plus 2 angle represent? Represent? They want to know what that angle is, and 7x plus 7 degrees, they want to know what that one is. So they want to know what these two angles are. So if I want to, I can call this angle 1 and this angle 2. So one thing to pick up on is, since this is a straight line, let me try it again. So angle 1 and angle 2. So notice how this angle 1 added to this angle 2, notice how that's a linear pair since they form a line. In other words, they're supplementary. So one thing we pick up on is, by definition, angle 1 and angle 2 must add up to 180 degrees since they form half a circle. That means they're supplementary. So what I can do though is angle 1 is actually this 7x plus 7. And what I want to do is add to that, angle 2 is actually this 12x plus 2. And together they have to add up to this 180. And I'm going to remove the label of degrees and just keep the numbers in there, and I'll put the degrees in the end. I think in your answer, I think they already have the degree symbol there. All you got to do is put the number in. So if I look at this, I look at this as an equation. Notice how it's kind of what we've just been doing earlier in 7.1. We can combine like terms. The 7x and the 12x does give me a 19x, and this 7 plus 2 does give me a 9. This has to equal this 180. So then I can subtract 9 on both sides, try to get this x by itself here. So since x is already on one side of the equation, I just got to get the number on the other side. So I subtract 9 on both sides, and we end up with that. So we have this 19x equals, looks like 171. So don't have a calculator handy on there, but I think we could just do this 19 into. So I need a 1. I would probably try a 9 to start with. What is 19 times 9? 9 times 9 is 81. Carry an 8. 9 times 1 is 9 plus 8 is 7. So 9 does work. So since I knew that 9 times 9 was 81, that's the only one I could think of. That guess worked out pretty good. Or again, you can just type in 171 divided by 19 into your calculator, and that should give you this 9. So what I got to do now, though, is substitute the 9 in for x and actually determine the measure of the angle. So 12 times 9 plus 2 gives me angle 2, if you will. So that's going to be what? 108 plus 2? That's going to be 110 degrees. And then I have to put 9 in for x here, so that's going to be 7 times 9 plus 7. And notice that since they're supplementary, I've got 110. I'm needing a 70 because 110 plus 70 gives me 180. So if I don't get 70 here, then something's not correct. So that's where, again, you can check yourself. So 7 times 9 is 63, plus 7 indeed does give me 70. So my work is holding out because these two angles have to add up to 180 degrees, and 110 plus 70 does add up to 180 degrees. So that my answer is here. So again, I don't think you have to put the degree symbol here. I think the degree symbol is already part of your work. But if not, then it should be on your little pad there to get that. So that would be our two answers here again. Let's see if we can come up with another example. So now we have these two lines crisscrossing. So notice how these are opposite angles. So we should pick up on, hey, these are vertical angles. vertical angles are equal. So if I call this angle 1 and this angle 2, angle 1 must equal angle 2. But instead of using angle 1 and angle 2, we have this 3x plus 37. So that represents angle 1. And this 6x plus 7 represents our angle 2. But notice though, since they're equal, I can replace angle 1 with the 3x plus 37, and I'm going to leave off the degrees and just keep the math in there. So 3x plus 37 must equal then this 6x plus then this 7. So if I solve this equation, notice how again it's linear, but notice how the variables on different sides of the equation. So I pick on the little guy, so I'm actually going to subtract a 3x here and subtract a 3x here because I like to get the smaller one out of the way. So this gives me a 37 equals this 6x plus the 7. Now the catch is I need to get the 6x by itself, so the number has to move to the other side. So I have to subtract a 7 here as long as I subtract a 7 there to keep the equation balanced. So again, I draw a line to create my new equation. So this becomes 30 equals 6x. And I know that 6 times 5 is 30, so I can kind of see the solution. But if you can't, you can still solve for x by making the coefficient of x 1. So if you divide this side by 6, you have to divide this side by 6 to make the coefficient of x 1. So this is going to turn into 5 equals x, or in other words, x equals 5. So what I have to do now is substitute the 5 in for x and figure out what the actual angles are. So 3 times 5 plus 37, that's going to be 15 plus 37. 15 plus 37, is that going to be 52? Yeah, that's going to be 52. So that means that this angle should also be 52. So let's see if that plays out. So 6 times, let's see here, 6 times 5 plus 7, that gives me 37. So what's going on here? Are those angles equal or are they not equal? So I'm not getting equal here. So did I make a mistake somewhere in my math? I have to pause my video for a second to see what's going on here. So something's wrong with my math because I should have got the same answer. So we got to use the other end of this pencil and erase and kind of do this again, or just get out a new sheet of paper. I know that my original math is correct here. I know these angles have to be equal, but somewhere along the way, we made a mistake. You probably saw that. I didn't. You were probably saying, stop, stop. You made a mistake. Didn't hear you. So again, we know we have to subtract 3x here and we have to subtract 3x here on both sides. So when I do that, the 3x's will zero out. I get 37. And notice here I should have brought down a 3x plus 7. And I brought down a 6x there. So I didn't do my math correctly. 6x take away 3x is actually 3x. So then if we subtract 7 on both sides, we're going to get 30 equals 3x. And notice how we do get a different answer here. Notice now I get 10. So if I divide both sides by 3, I'm getting x by itself, and 30 divided by 3 would be 10. So 10 would be what x is, or again, x equals 10. So let's try it again and see if we get the same answer this time. So 3 times 10 plus 37, that's going to be 30 plus 37, that's going to be 67. So if we come down here and go 6 times 10, add 7, yeah, we do get 67. Now the math is working. Okay. So notice how we knew that these angles had to be equal, so it didn't check correctly. So when you make mistakes, guess what? You got to start over. But my original premise was correct. I felt comfortable up here. It was something with my math going down through there. So if we look at this one here, notice how again we have this right angle and we have these two adjacent angles that are going to add up to 90. So this is complementary. So complementary means we have two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So I know that this 5x plus 5 and this 35x plus 5, it must equal this 90 degrees. So if I want to find what this angle is, notice how I would have to combine like terms would be 40x and 5 plus, again, I have to be able to read my writing here. That's a 5. So 5 plus 5 is what that is. So apologize for that. So 3x plus 5, my 5s are just looking a little sloppy. So 5x plus 35x is 40. 5 plus 5 would be 10. And then this would equal 90. Now, let's see if you can do a little bit of this without showing all your work. Notice how here I would have to subtract 10 on both sides. I know this 10 is going to disappear. That's going to give me 40. And 90 minus 10 would be, so I should have 40x, should equal 90 minus 10 would be 80. And then I should get 40 times what is 80 would be 2. So if you can do some of the math mentally, you don't have to show every little step there. Let's see if this actually plays out. So if I put 2 in, 5 times 2 plus 5, that's going to be 10 plus 5, which is 15. 35 times 2 plus 5, well, that's going to be 70 plus 5, which is 75. Does 15 plus 75 add up to 90? Yeah, it does. So our math is correct. So x would equal 2, and the two angles would be 15 and 75. So make sure you read your question to see what they want. Do they just want to know the value of x, or do they want to know the actual angles? So that's what you have to pay attention to as well, is what do they want? So if I look at this example here, notice how we have these two parallel lines. This line here and this line here are said to be parallel. So L1 is parallel to L2. And notice how we have this transversal. And what we have here are alternate interior angles. So notice how they're on alternate sides of the transversal and they're between these two lines. So remember, alternate interior angles were said to be equal. So we know that this 2x minus this 27 must equal this x plus 2. So we can set them equal to each other. So notice how we can create an equation using that information. So that geometry allows us to generate an equation. Now I want to get the variable on the same side, so I'm going to subtract the little guy. So I'm going to subtract x here as long as I subtract an x over there. So this is going to give me x minus 27 is equal to 2. And then we got to get the number out of the way. So this number's got to go to the other side. So the opposite of a negative 27 is a positive 27. So I balance the equation by adding a 27 to both sides. So x is going to equal 2 plus 27 would be 29. So x is 29. Now, as far as the angles go, we have 2x minus 27 represents one angle, and x plus 2 represents the other angle. So if I put the 29 in, we have 2 times 29 minus 27 minus 27, not equals 27. So 2 29s would be what, 58? Take away 27. I'm going to have to do that down the page. 58, take away 27, 31. So I think that's correct. 31 degrees. Looks good. So the next one is got to put 29 in. So 29, oh no, that's what do I got a 2 there for? That should be degrees. That's a degree symbol. So x plus 2 degrees. So if I put a 29 in, and if I add 2 to that, do I get 31? Yeah. So notice that x is 29 and the two angles are 31 degrees. So we have that information. So again, pay attention to what your homework asks for. So this one looks a little bit different because now the parallel lines are going in this direction and the transversal is going this way. But notice how these are parallel lines. Notice that these two angles are on the same side of the transversal. They're both above. And notice how they're between. So these are considered same side interior. And from our notes, and we can kind of see this is kind of acute and this is obtuse, they're not equal, but they are supplementary. So we do know that these two angles added together should equal 180 degrees. So notice that that's creating an equation for us. So notice how that geometry converts over to algebra. So that x plus 1, and we're going to add to that 9x minus 51, and I'm just going to drop the degree symbol. And we know that those two angles have to add up to 180 degrees. So there's our equation. Now we have to combine like terms. The x and the 9x would give me my 10x, the 1 and a negative 51. Well, since those are different signs, that really tells us to subtract because I have 1, but I have to pay 51. So I'm going to still owe some money here. So 51 minus 1 is going to be this 50, but notice how it's got to be a negative 50. So I have 1 and lost 51, so that means I'm still going to be owing $50. That makes sense to me. And then this 180 just comes on down. Now we're kind of home free, I hope. So we need to move the number to the other side of the equation. So if we add a 50 here, we got to add a 50 over here. So if I do that math, we get this 10x, and that's going to equal, what is that, 230? Now, if we divide by 10 and divide by 10, remember the shortcut is 10 over 10, of course, is going to be 1, but when you divide by 10, that basically means you're going to lose a place value, or in this case, we're going to lose a 0. So that just turns into a 23. So if you divide by 10, it removes a 0, and since we have a 0 on the top, we can lose a 0, or in other words, we can move the decimal place one place to the left because dividing by 10 actually moves the place value one place to the left. So 23 would be my answer. So again, you can do that mental math, or again, you can use a calculator. So if I look at this x plus 1, if I put 23 in for x and add 1, I do get 24 degrees. Now, the other one is this 9x minus 51. That represents another angle. So I have to put 23 into that. So 9 times 23 minus 51. That's probably calculator work. Again, I didn't bring my calculator with me, so wasn't hoping for this kind of math, but 23 times 9, I can do it the old way. 9 times 3 is 27, carry a 2. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 2. 18 plus 2 is 20. That's 207. So I have 207, take away 51. Try that again. 51. So if I go 207 and I take away 51, well, 7 minus 1 is 6. I can't subtract there, so I'll borrow 1 and bring a 10 over. 10 minus 5 is 5, so 156. So does 156 plus 51 give me 207? Yeah, it does. So that's got to be 156. Now the question is, does 156 plus this 24, does it equal 180 degrees? Because we said the first angle is 24, and we said the second angle was 156. Does that add up to 180 degrees? Yeah, it does. So our math looks good. 156 plus 24 does indeed equal 180. So x must equal 23 to make this all work. So the math has to make the geometry work as well. So we have that as our answers. 23 is the value of x, and then one of the angles is 24, and the other angle is 56. So we got one other problem here. I'm going to pause and we'll do this one on a different one here.